So now, without further delay, I'd like to introduce our panelists. We were expecting David Alexander, so he should be here, hopefully. He's on his way, maybe he's stuck in traffic. So we look forward to him arriving. But next to David is Amna Bassett. Amna is a York University graduate, and she works with Go Transit. Thank you for coming today, Amna. Next to Amna is Papia Datta. Papia is also a York University grad, and she works with Starcom. Next, thank you, Papia, for coming as well. Next to Papia is Jackie Hampshire. Jackie is also a York University graduate, and she works with Brainstorm Strategy Group. And finally, we have Zoe Medkoff. Zoe is also a York University alumna, and she was with Tribal DDB, and she'll tell you a little bit more about her current situation. So thank you all so much for coming today, and Zoe is also a York University graduate. I don't know if I said that, but thank you so much for coming, and we're excited to hear from you. So I'd like to start off by asking each panelist to take just a minute to describe your current role and organization. So Amna, did you want to start?
Sure, I can do that. As Hima mentioned, my name is Amna. I work for Go Transit. My role actually, I didn't even know it existed until I applied for it. I never heard of such a thing. And what I do is actually called Community Relations and Issues Management. And when I first saw the posting, I actually realized it was one of those brainstorm or kind of enlightenment moments that life is what you kind of make it. Here was this position I never heard of in my entire life going to university, but here I am applying for it. And as the name describes, I do a lot of work with communities, and I do a lot of work with communications and issues management. So for Go Transit, I'm actually part of a particular project in which we're constructing better transit for this region of Ontario. And a lot of my job is essentially working with people, working through issues, having access to information, and making sure that I know how to deliver key messages to the target audiences in the most effective and efficient manner. And I can't do that unless I have all the information accessible to me. But to add to that, there's an underlying layer of integrity and trust in what I do as well. It doesn't matter what I'm saying to my target audience if they don't actually believe what I'm saying at all. So I could be telling them, the moon is falling, but if they don't believe me, they don't have that inherent trust, then that relationship building piece is missing. And that is something that I've been able to excel at, and I found throughout communications, regardless of if it's advertising, marketing, really in any role, that piece of value people are really looking for is integrity, and knowing that what you're saying is, they can take it for face value and know that it's actually something coming from a place of accuracy and knowledge. And so basically I do a lot of work on a construction project, and I work with engineers, urban planners, designers, and I take all of that engineer talk and I make it translated into normal people language so that I can talk to everybody about it. And that's pretty much all. I'll stop it at that for what I do as a community relations and issues specialist for Go Transit.
Okay, thank you, Amna. Papia?
So my name is Papia, and I work at a company called Starcom. We are essentially a media agency. And I know for a lot of students here, you're probably wondering what a media agency is. And when I actually stumbled upon my job, I was looking to break into brand management and into some form of advertising. So one of the two. And I didn't know what a media planning agency was at the time. I had a very small section of my advertising class that I took here that focused on media planning. So through my career search, I actually came across a former coworker, through a previous job, who passed me his card one day. He just came to watch a movie at the theater that I was managing at the time. He passed me his card one day and said, "Hey, I know you're, looking for a job in marketing. You might want to check out my company." Well, it's not his company, but he worked there at the time. And so as I did more research, I applied to a lot of positions. I never really thought about it. I had his card in my wallet, didn't really think too much about it. And one day I pulled it out, I looked it up, and I realized that a media planning agency is actually something that I would have loved to have decided to, take my first step into marketing with. So what I realized was a media planning agency essentially works with the client as well as the creative agency to come up with the strategy, the advertising strategy, and you need all these three partners in order to come to market with a solid plan. So my role there, I'm a strategy supervisor. So essentially, I actually look into a lot of research, find out about the target market, find out about what the sort of objectives are for the campaign, and then work with my clients as well as the creative leads in order to come up with an actual strategy.
Okay, thank you. Lucky you ran into him at the movie theater, right?
That's right. Of all places. So you never know where you'll meet someone. Yeah.
Jackie?
Hi guys, my name is Jackie Hampshire. I work for a company called Brainstorm Strategy Group. So basically our company is based on kind of three pillars or lines of business as you can kind of look at it. The first one is around strategy, so strategic planning. So we work with a lot of corporations from across Canada and also in the United States to help them with their kind of strategic planning and their campus hiring. So typically we work with organizations that have campus recruiters that come to universities across Canada and hire students into their new grad positions. So also along that side of strategy, we also work with a lot of career centers from across Canada as well to help them with their strategic planning so that they can help better transition students from education to employment. So that's kind of the one side of the business. The other side of the business that we deal with is research. Primarily, we undertake two major research projects every year. One of them is called Canada's Top Campus Employers Report. The other one is called the From Learning to Work Survey. They are national surveys that happen. Last year, about 28,000 students from across Canada participated. You guys might have been involved if you had completed the survey at the time. And it just lets kind of us know what the pulse of campus is and also what students' interests are in terms of overall career goals, how are they searching for careers, what are their interests. And lastly, the other part of the business is around training and events. The training and events side of the business is really about improving the hiring of campus recruiters and organizations so that individuals find themselves in a career that is a good fit for them. Also that it will help organizations with their retention and in terms of attracting the right types of candidates to their roles. My role, particularly within the company, is the communications and event manager. So within that, I do a lot of event marketing, tons of conferences every year from across Canada and in the United States. So that's where a lot of my time is spent, as well as kind of internal and external communications. So we do a weekly newsletter, kind of an executive news brief about what's happening and trends in kind of campus recruiting and career education, and that gets sent to our kind of national audience, and that goes out weekly, as well as communications and email campaigns, and I can talk more about that as we go forward, but that's sort of the overall big picture idea of the company and what I do.
Thank you. Jackie used to work at the Career Center here at York too.
Career and careers.
I did.
Hi, my name is Zoe Medikoff. I started my career, interestingly enough, here at York. I was a features editor at Excalibur. I became managing editor of Excalibur. Then in my last year of school, I did an internship at 17 magazine in New York City. I started to write in the early 2000s, and at that time there were a lot of newspapers and magazines. It was a very different media landscape environment. No one heard of Mark Zuckerberg or the Twitter or any of those new fun applications that we're now completely addicted to. And in that time had started to perform some consulting and did a lot of marketing communications for retailers, point-of-purchase displays, newsletters, e-blasts, some direct marketing. I worked on websites when it was more like a Web 1.0 environment, so more of a static website, less than the kind of engaging, more comprehensive sites that we have today. And worked a lot in custom publications, meaning we developed publications for certain verticals like food service and hospitality. bars and clubs. So as you can see, my 20s was full of going to these events and covering really fun stuff and getting paid almost absolutely nothing. I went and was a writer for People magazine. I was a columnist with Lulu magazine, which is part of Rogers. I was writing for Four Seasons Hotel and Resorts magazine, a columnist with Globe, working for The Star, The Post, Metro. If you read it, I probably wrote in it. And that's basically how I supplanted my career. More recently, when the recession hit and the landscape really did shift from an analogous environment to this more or less converged digital environment, I really thought that there is no future in publishing, or the future of publishing is going to be very different from what I thought it was or had learned what it was when I was in school and graduated in 99, 2000. So I went a little more digital and decided that I had enough of lifestyle and beauty and fashion, and thought that my career over the next 30 years would take a little bit of a different toll, and went on to more corporate routes and worked in recruiting. I was director of marketing and communications for a small size recruiting agency. Left that, got recruited to Trump International downtown on Bay in Adelaide. It's a long story, but I resigned from that job quickly after, about 8 weeks after, and then I got a contract with Tribal DEB, which is a global marketing agency. A lot of the agencies are located at Bloor & Young, a lot of the PR and marketing agencies, and I work primarily with Manulife and McDonald's, and it's with only on the social side. So in the last 2 years, 2.5 years, I've really been entrenched in social. I really do feel that there is a tremendous opportunity. It's not a fad, it's here to stay. We are really finding ways to monetize different social applications and develop tactics to leverage brands and create conversation and sell products, which is basically the end goal of marketing. So I can definitely talk to that. I have been interviewing intense, just so intense. Over the last month, I had an interview yesterday with a financial institution, and that lasted 2 hours, which will go on to another meeting on Wednesday, which will probably last another 2 hours. And so that's the kind of full-time job that I've been engaged in. And I think and I'll really just cap this off, but I think as opposed to something like a new grad where you're really just looking for work and looking to really find out the brand called you, I'm really looking for the right fit. So, I know that, a lot of people will tell you try for 5 years. I really look only 3 years in the future. And so I'm really looking for that 3-year jump. And at that point, you kind of make a decision of if you want to stay in that company, if you have opportunity to move around within an organization, whether you like a large enterprise, an SMB, whether you want to go an entrepreneurial route, whether you want to open up your own agency. There are so many different areas that you can go on. And then there's agency side and client side. So I think there's a lot that you'll have to discover over the next 5-10 years in order to map out your career a little bit further. So it's definitely interesting times. And I just wanted to add, I know Steve from LinkedIn, and everyone should definitely go to that seminar. He's a very smart guy. LinkedIn, I cannot tell you how powerful a resource tool that is. I only wish we had something like LinkedIn back when I was in university. I'll just tell you, when I found my internship at 17, I went to Chapters and I found a book on internships in New York. And I literally photocopied my resume, put together some profiles, and sent out in manila envelopes to all the different editors. My email at that time, which I know today would be your first letter and last name, in 1999 it was yu1657779@yorku.ca. It's amazing how I still remember that. But that's to show you how far it's come at that time. So there are a lot of different tactics that you can use now, especially being social and being online, that can take you to the offline world. And that's something that you really must start leveraging now. And again, by going to something like Steve's workshop, you'll really have a leg up and really get your career into the position that you want it to be.
Thank you. I'm going to hire you for marketing our events. Thank you for doing that. What an interesting career. Yeah. Thank you. So along the lines of what Zoe just did, I'd like to ask each of the panelists to take us through your career path, kind of think back to when you first graduated. How did you get that first job, and how did you end up where you are today? Did you want to start, Jackie? Maybe we'll work this
Sure.
way.
Okay, so I graduated in, I can't remember, I think 2002. And my first position was with a company called Inventa Sales and Marketing. So they are a field marketing company and they do promotions. So that was very much contract-based work upon graduation, so hard to pay rent, but it's what I was doing. I did my degree in communications and English from York, so knew I was interested in the field of communications, not really sure which area, what I was interested in, what that actually meant. So
no one does.
So when this position came up with Inventa, I decided to take it. And does anybody do field marketing? You know what that is? No? Okay, so field marketing is basically where you represent, usually it's a multinational client, like Sprite, for example, was one of the clients that I worked with. And you're either selling their products to consumers or you're creating an experience, depending on what it is. So it's all in the field. So one of the jobs that I had was in the Sprite Zone, which they used to have at Raptors games back in the day when you used to kind of give away free stuff for Sprite and play with the kids and create an overall experience for the customer when they were there. So I did that, and at the same time got hired for a contract position actually at York University in student recruitment. So for about 2 years I worked in student recruitment, which was kind of my first introduction into, even though it was contract, kind of a full-time gig where I was out actually doing presenting, public speaking, and starting to get a little bit more interested in the area of marketing. It was really sales, but now to people instead of about products, more about services and what York had to offer. So a lot of kind of interesting times then. I was on the road a lot, which was great as kind of a new grad. Kind of lived out of a suitcase for a little while, but really was interesting for me as kind of a first step into careers. After that, I ended up actually getting hired with a little bit of a lag in between there, where I moved back home so that I could save a bit of money because I wasn't making any. And then eventually got hired actually at the Career Center at York University and spent probably about 2 to 3 years working for the York Career Center. Primarily my role there was in event management, which I actually just ended up falling into. That was, at the time, there was another individual who was doing it. I was sort of interested, so kind of took it on as a part of my role, and eventually she left that position and was able to apply for that. And that's really where I started and kind of sparked my passion for doing overall event management. And that's where my career actually took me for probably the next 7 years. Left York and went to McMaster University, and I was there for the past 7 years prior to joining Brainstorm, and was doing their event management, and then also moved into a role as a communication and marketing specialist with them. And primarily dealing with, again, in the career field, so working with students and organizations around hiring, which is how I transitioned into this position with Brainstorm. You'll find that depending on whatever industry you go into, it's a very small world once you start working within a particular area and somebody knows somebody. And so it's easy to kind of make those connections. And that's what was happening for me. I left York because the director at the Career Center at McMaster found out that I was kind of interested in looking around at different places. I had held a conference here which she attended, which was kind of my in, to then to be able to say to her, actually, I'm originally from Hamilton. I'm interested in moving back. My partner at the time was in Burlington, so we were kind of looking at a bit of a transition, and ended up at that point, through networking with her, finding out about the hiring process and being able to move myself there. Same within this position at Brainstorm. I had met the president of the company several times at different conferences. So when the position came up, which I actually saw on LinkedIn, was able to connect with him and kind of use our mutual knowledge of people and also at different conferences that we had been to say, you know, this is what I'm interested. Our interviews were not actual, they were interviews, but they were much more conversational based. Yeah, so not a lot of kind of one-on-one questioning about skills, but more around kind of interests and values and where we think the company can go. So we're a small-sized company, which is a little bit different than when you're, you know, looking at being hired into a large kind of multinational company. But that's kind of how my career has taken me. So it's not been a direct linear line. I can't even say that I sort of had a 5-year plan when I started out when I was graduating. I was lucky if I had like a 1-month plan. And so I just kind of was like at the idea of let's see what happened, open up doors to possibilities, and and go from there. And I also just didn't turn things down at the beginning. Was willing to take contract upon contract so that I could find out what I was interested in, which really also enabled me to explore different avenues until I found out that, yeah, I was really passionate about marketing and I was passionate about event management, and that was where I wanted to kind of spend my time. So you'll kind of find that too as you're going through your careers, I find, is that really narrowing in on what it is that interests you about the overall communications field. Is it marketing? Is it advertising? Is it sales? Is it media? So that's kind of a piece of what happens, I think, along the way.
I just have a quick question. What is the major difference between field marketing and experiential marketing?
It's the same thing.
It is the same
Yeah,
thing? Okay.
so field and experiential are used kind of
Okay.
interchangeably.
Great.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
What a great example of networking and leveraging contacts and being open to possibilities in your career, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, I'm sure. Thank you. Papia?
Sure. So, as I mentioned, when I started off my career, it was because a friend had approached me with this card one day. But prior to that, what actually brought me into marketing was my awesome experience here at York University. I was going through a big sort of career conundrum in terms of what I wanted to do. I started off with a degree. I started off working on a degree in computer science, and I quickly realized that that was not cut out for me whatsoever. Those calculus classes were just not, the nights that I'd spend trying to figure out some of those equations were just not cutting it for me. So I ended up doing a lot of soul searching, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I knew that I had an interest in business. I did well in business, and I enjoyed my accounting classes. So that's actually what I thought I wanted to do. I wanted to become an accountant. I wanted to become a CA, and I was really, taking my accounting classes very seriously, and I was taking some electives in marketing. And through that, what I found was I was always really high-strung and stressed out with my accounting classes, but as soon as I entered my marketing classes, I was always enjoying myself. And I'm really glad that I actually took the opportunity to listen to myself and pursue an opportunity in marketing, because that's really, really what my interest, my passions is what brought me to where I am today. And had I not done that, I probably would have been very miserable today. But so coming out of school, I knew that I wanted to continue after pursuing a degree in marketing. I knew I wanted to continue in the actual realm of work. And so I was a theater manager at the time. I worked there throughout university, part of high school. I moved up in the ranks, and then once I graduated, I was able to get a full-time job there, which was great because at the time we were just getting into the recession, and it was interviewing for jobs was, it was a hard task, and I had a lot of friends who didn't get a job for a number of years, and some of them are even today still looking to break into their first job in marketing, but have not had that opportunity to. So I was lucky enough that at my job there, my seniors, saw my interest, and they kind of let me take on the local marketing aspect for my theater specifically. So I got to create little programs within the theater, worked with some of the schools in my local areas to build programs to get students to come out to the theaters. So in doing that, I was able to build a portfolio for myself. And then one day when I came across this old coworker of mine, and I decided to look into Starcom Media Vest Group, I gave them a call. I interviewed with them. I didn't get the job right away. I was offered a position, but then there was an account had been lost. So they called me back and said, unfortunately, they had to switch some people out of a different role. And this is something, the area of marketing is always changing. It's always evolving. And, you'll come across a lot of these things where even if something is a go, it might not be in the last minute. And I'm sure some of the other panelists will know the intricacies of the field. So I didn't get the job at the time, and I was, really heartbroken. I really was interested in this opportunity. But then, sure enough, as I was interviewing for some other jobs, a few of them were looking pretty good. Starcom had called me back, and they offered me another role when they acquired another client. So I actually went ahead. I took on the job. I got moved around a little after that first opportunity, and My first job was with Kraft. So my account was Kraft Canada. I worked on natural and processed cheeses and pizzas, Delicio Pizza. But I got to learn a lot. And so as an assistant, I got to actually look into a lot of the areas of research. So there's a lot of target research that you do, target marketing research. You work with something called PMB, which is the Print Measurement Bureau. It enables you to, it's a survey study that's done every year, and you're able to find out a lot of key nuggets about your target. So in doing that, I was able to really create a lot of research, understand the field better, and after that first role, I was an assistant for about 2 years, really aspiring to move up in my career. Didn't really have a break. There was, the recession was definitely hard-hitting at the time, but through networking, I was actually able to meet with somebody else. So I don't know if any of you have heard of Universal McCann, but they're another a leading advertising brand. So I was offered an opportunity to work on Johnson & Johnson at J3. I enjoyed my career there. I really enjoyed the time that I spent there. And then through one of my previous coworkers on Kraft, sure enough, a few months down the road, I was offered another opportunity to come back and work at Starcom on the Kellogg's brand. So that's what I've been doing for the past 2 years. I've been working on a lot of Special K integrations, Special K, Kashi, All Brand. These have been the brands that I've been managing for about 2 years. And recently I decided that it was time for me to make a shift from consumer packaged goods, because that's been primarily what I've been doing my entire career for the past 4 years, and I've moved into financials. So I've been lucky enough to work at an agency that offers a lot of different opportunities and has an entire breadth of different brands. So now I work on TD, and it's been a learning curve, but it's been an interesting process. So very different world from CPG, but in all of this, I found that the relationships that I built throughout all of my jobs, even starting out outside of marketing and then within the actual field of marketing, that's what kind of brought me to where I am today. So very important, the relationships that I've built.
Thank you. How interesting. And I never even thought of it as two different, like packaging marketing versus financial marketing, but I learned something new today. It's interesting. Thank you. Amna?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to echo what you were saying, Pappy, about relationships and how critical that is. I always had this one thought that you always meet somebody twice in life, and you don't ever expect it, but it happens. And when it happens, you're just thinking to yourself, oh, I hope I did, presented myself with my best foot forward the last time. Because it's happened to me where I was working with a public relations company, and now in my role here at Go Transit, I've ran into the same folk over and over. So that great point about relationship managing. Really, I think one of you guys had mentioned managing your own brand, the brand of you. That's really where it comes down to. I actually started off much similar to you guys, here at York. I had no clue what I was doing. I just wanted to finish my degree and then sleep for 3 months. And so that's what I did. And that was wonderful, because after, I think by then it was 19 years of consecutive education where you don't have a break. And so that was nice. But after that, I figured, okay, I need to put my degree to use. Luckily for me, I was actually working for they amalgamated, I guess, two of the colleges, what used to be known as Atkinson. So I used to actually work for the student experience office there, and this is during my time at York, and that actually gave me the foundation to launch me into my first real adult job. And what I did as a student here at York, working for the alumni or the student experience office, was just a slew of things. I was exposed to event management, developing content for academic handbooks. I got a chance to work with the designers to figure out, what the layout and the content, how would it all look like, send it to print. So it's really taking an idea from concept to the realization of having it in your hand. Aside from that, I also was lucky enough to do a lot of event management, and so developing presentations, developing just the intricacies of running an event. It does, excuse me, you have to just plan for everything down to the T, to the point of having a backup plan for your backup plan. And so those are some of the things that I really picked up on. And so when I graduated back in 2008, I really didn't know what to do, but I was applying for jobs, and I ended up working for Allstate Insurance, which is a massive insurance company down in the States, not so big here, but they're starting to develop their market presence. And I ended up working for their community or corporate relations department. So this gave me the opportunity to take those skills of event management, working with people, and developing marketing and communication tools all in one. And at the same time, I would be exposed to doing a lot of different, what I would kind of call fun things, and developing, just having something new to do every single day. So for example, I was able to work on a commercial for one of the emergency preparedness campaigns, which was a public relations campaign that we were developing, and I wrote the script. I worked with the crew there, the director, the producers, and that was something that I realized, I really like doing this, and started looking more towards videos and taking a look into the digital side of communications and marketing as well. So from there, I was really lucky at the corporate relations department. We were actually in the midst of a major shift, and so we were hiring a public relations team to help us go through this shift. And so I was able to sit on the panel to evaluate a list of public relations teams here in Toronto, and we were able to shortlist a few and picked one to basically take on the account. So I was actually the opposite of, I guess, some of what you guys have been doing, being on the client side as opposed to the service side. But it gave me the opportunity to learn more about what they do just by virtue of the questions that I would ask, looking for the daily media hits, looking for what's the, I think somebody mentioned the pulse of the company. What are people talking about? How are we perceived? Where do we need to do work? And so those were some of the questions that we answered with the assistance of the public relations team. One of the things as I was going through this was the importance of people. So I was kind of in the midst of looking for a new challenge. And so I realized something that, people are always going to be around, and I wanted to shift more into the issues management side of things, because one thing you'll find in life is people will always complain. People will complain. And so if you can make a business out of that, it was basically the thinking behind me shifting over for this role that I'm in now as a community relations and issues management. So I shifted over to Go and am currently doing a lot of communications tools, whether it's videos, presentations, community meetings, reaching out through Facebook, Twitter, and so that's kind of how I landed here to where I'm at. But one of the things that I would really impress upon all of you guys is throughout this journey, I was surrounded with really good people. And I'm not talking people that are kind and genuine. They were that as well. But these were people that, in addition to being, generous with their time, they had skills that I could learn from. And I literally would go into the offices and meetings and be just a sponge, because they had something that they could show me, whether it was through developing meetings, developing marketing plans, but I just wanted to learn under their wing. And so if you guys are able to find somebody or a mentor of some sort, then that's really a key aspect of developing yourselves in a professional sense, but also it builds on that relationship management piece that will help you in your career in the future as well.
So interesting. We had a panel last week, and the panelists said the same thing about finding a mentor. And then on LinkedIn, there was an article about the importance of mentors in your life and throughout your career. So it's interesting that that's kind of, I don't hear that too often, and it seems to be boiling up these days.
It's actually one of the things I wish someone had told me. I wish somebody would have sat me down and said, look around, and find yourself a mentor. Try to figure out what it is that you want. You don't have to have all the answers, but if you have a little bit of an inkling, just a little spark somewhere that says, maybe I like this, and you just kind of gravitate towards that to do your own research, to try it out. If you don't like it, you don't have to keep doing it. But if you do, then build those relationships and find somebody to help you through that.
And one thing I should say about the Career Center, shameless plug here again, but at the Career Center we do have career counselors who will sit with you and kind of help you deal with your career conundrum, as Papiya said. If you have any questions about what should I do, I don't know where to begin, I have no idea what my passion or interest is, we have counselors who will meet with you and for multiple sessions to help you kind of work that out. So that's also listed in our book. You can read a little more about that and talk to me as well. So, yeah.
I just wanted to echo what Papiya had to say, because I could not agree any stronger that it's amazing to have a mentor. I was accepted into a mentorship program with an association called the American Marketing Association Toronto Chapter, and they have a mentoring program. It's meant for, I think, the career a little bit up from you, more or less in my stage. Mid-30s, and my mentor was CEO of Edelman Public Relations, which is a global public relations firm. Now she's a consultant, and I've met her about 7 times now. So we're actually friends. I mean, she's met my partner, we speak if I have questions to her. So again, I cannot express anymore that over the next 2 or 3 years, to find somebody who's a mentor, but not somebody that much older than you. Find somebody who's maybe 5 or 10 years down the line, maybe not the next step, but the next step after that. So if you're an assistant, try and get a mentor who's a senior manager. Don't go too high, but don't get to the person who's just, you're about to get their job, or you're on the track for that job. And it's very much help. And you can find out more if you just type in Mentor Toronto's. There are a lot. There's another group called, it's interesting, you watch Mad Men and you find that, it's all men running the show, and here we go, all women. So there are associations. There's another one called the Women's Executive Network, WXN. They do breakfast series. There's another one that I'm part of called the International Association of Business Communicators, IABC. They would accept students at a very, very reduced price. They have a mentorship program. They also have networking events, as does the AMA. So these are really great associations to collaborate with and find out more information. And I think through these areas you'll meet the right people and also be able to find those type of mentors. So I think it's really important to develop those deep relationships now.
I'm glad you said deep relationships, because I guess, it's not that we're saying that you go up to someone and say, will you be my mentor? It's really about building a relationship and being open to the possibility that people could help guide you in your career. Amna, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, just because you mentioned a couple of the different organizations, one of the things that I also wish someone had sat me down and told me, maybe 5 years ago, is you have to make your own opportunities. So, here you have 4 people, and we're talking about things. You've got a great resource right now. I mean, a number of different organizations that have just been mentioned. But you really have to make your own opportunities in terms of you have to reach out to people. It really is about the interaction. And I would, and I still do, if I like a particular website and what they're doing, whether it's work related or not, what I enjoy doing is then reaching out to whoever developed that site and saying, hey, maybe, I'm really interested in whatever it is you have to say. Would you be free to, and just, develop a dialogue and, maybe meet up for coffee if that's a possibility. But you have to take that initial step to do your own research and look around for there's a lot of amazing things out there. There's a lot of opportunity, and people are, for the most part, more than happy to tell you about what they're doing and seeing, telling you how they got there as well. And that's something that is definitely a big resource, but you have to take that first step and really engage and interact and just be the person you have to start your own life, essentially.
And the Career Center also offers a program called TASTE. TASTE is an opportunity where we
Pure
invite
marketing.
York University. We have postcards in the back, but we connect current students with York University alumni who are working in particular fields, and you'll meet them for coffee or lunch. And the idea is that you can, hopefully make a connection and make that build that relationship. So it's really what we call bite-sized mentoring. It's free. It's not. We don't charge for any of our services. It's an opportunity for you to connect. So we have a list of participating alumni on our website, and if you're interested in meeting with any of those alum, you can just apply, and if you get chosen, you will be given information on how to meet with them and the type of questions you could possibly ask. So along those lines of what Amna and Zoe was saying, we're saying, yeah, looking back now, what do you wish you knew back then that you know now? And also, what skills and experience can students now be obtaining to be successful in a career in marketing or at advertising? So Jackie, do you want to start?
Just one of the things that I did that I found really helpful was, and I actually did this on a part-time basis, was I completed a post-grad program in marketing. So I did mine through McMaster because they offer a continuing education kind of postgraduate, but there are a lot of great colleges that obviously kind of specialize in this area as well. And I found for myself, so I was already working in the field, but a lot of individuals kind of do it after they finish their undergraduate degree because, and a lot of my friends who work in advertising, marketing, web design, everything, have usually done a post-grad afterwards. The reason why I found it beneficial, and so did so many other people I know that have done it, is because it really did provide that kind of practical, hands-on knowledge that is so needed, I think, getting into any industry today. There's a lot I feel that I didn't even know working in the industry already that I learned from doing the post-grad. So, and that took me probably about, I don't know, I didn't do it for about 5 years after I'd already started working. So I wish that somebody had said, take that extra year. You know you don't want to do school like right after you graduate, but just take it and do it if you know you want to get into that industry. It's helpful. It's helpful for the fact of learning the practical knowledge, but also for meeting people. That's the other big benefit, right? Is that by doing that, sometimes you meet people that are already working in the industry, or you have the opportunity to do a co-op or an internship or a placement, which is really an in for a lot of people. Because marketing, communications, advertising is competitive. There are a lot of people trying to get into the field, and so you've heard kind of our stories as well. You know, people take really low-paying salaries at the beginning to get started, or work for free, or volunteer, or do whatever they need to do to start making those connections. Because I truly feel that in this industry, connections are vital. They really are. So by saying to yourself, okay, I might be interested in doing public relations, but I don't really know what that is. So I might start volunteering for a public relations agency where I can maybe get some experience on the weekends doing something or during the week, right? So that will allow you to at least kind of get your foot in the door and start meeting with people. When I was an undergrad at York, I interned at Harbourfront Centre for a while because I was originally kind of interested in the cultural arts scene. Didn't know if I wanted to get into not-for-profit. Thought it could be an area of interest for mine. After my internship, I started volunteering there so that I could continue to build relationships with people. That's something I did on my own, but I really kind of stress, and this just might be my experience, but looking at post-grad options. I think they really give some clarity around ideas that you might want to pursue and also really help build those connections. So you can wait till later after you've kind of started your career, but I kind of wish sometimes that I had done it right at the beginning. Might have been a little bit helpful for me in terms of direction.
Okay. Anybody else want to jump in?
I also wanted to say, just to continue on that, and by doing an internship, it's not only about discovering, the field, if it's marketing or communications, but it's also with the companies that you want to work for. So if it is CPG, if it is nonprofit, if it is quick serve restaurants, if it's financial services, the agencies, especially at the internship level, will literally throw you in every direction, which is great because then you can dip your hands into a couple of different industries. And with that, over 1 or 2 years, at least you can be more strategic as to what you're interested in, and then be able to grow from that point. So I think that's, it's really great. If you could honestly, stay at your parents' house another 2 years and save the money and not have to worry about work, and just, you know, work on your internship, work on getting non-paid jobs, volunteer, you'll be in a much better position the 3 years down the road. And you could probably command a little bit more of a salary, not much more. You're probably looking at, you know, the 30 to 50 band if you're lucky. But then a year or 2 years after that, you can quickly jump, and you can then go to 60, then start commanding 70. And then I'll be totally honest, in my range now, I'm asking for 80 to 110. So, you know, as you start to move along, as you get that experience, you'll be able to kind of beef up that brand called you. I just want to also say, I come from a different spectrum. I find myself a mishmash of so many different industries and functions that I literally brand myself as a multi-specialist, because I'm able to do the analytics, I'm able to do the writing, I'm able to do the community management, the client management, the cross-functional working relationships. So all of these, what we call transferable skills, which you're going to hear time and time again over the course of your career, could really add into these new positions, much like what, sorry, what's your?
Amna.
Problem is that you never even knew that job existed. I mean, we never knew that social media existed. Had I known that social media existed, I would not have gone into media. But, you know, who knew? And no one knew. I mean, you know, that just completely slapped the entire industry in the face. And, you know, you see what it is today. So a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people got laid off. There was a great documentary I saw called The Front Page. It was about the New York Times. And, you know, it was showcasing one guy who was a blogger before he became a journalist. So the model's turned up, you know, side of its head. And so is marketing. And I think that's definitely because of the social push. And I think that's really, you know, one area in addition to multiple areas that you're going to have to learn, things like SEO and SEM and inbound marketing and digital marketing and communications, that employers are going to want to ask, because now they're asking me, as I'm looking for jobs, okay, so you can do social, but, you know, can you work with the analytics? Okay, you can do social, but can you work with the creative designers? Okay, you can do social. So it's not just, yes, I can do social. It's I come to the table with multiple skills to tailor this for this job. And again, 2 of the 3 jobs that I'm now interviewing for over the past 3 weeks, 2 of them are completely new positions, both in social. The other one is a social position, but it's literally the first 5 years that it's been in existence. So these are the new jobs, and these are the new marketers, and that's why going to places like agencies where you get a whole different variety of skills and different people, and do you like corporate world, do you like the more laid back, you know, not laid back, but more kind of casual, business casual, marketing agency world, good luck.
I have to agree with Zoe in terms of when social kind of exploded, things changed a lot. But what I will say about you know, my short experience within the area of marketing is that it's always evolving, it's always changing, and you know, you really have to prepare yourself to be able to roll with those punches. And I think that's true for any career today. You really have to take that time to invest in yourself, to learn about what's new, you know, and think about what your interests are and how to match that with the opportunities that are out there today. You know, building on what Amna said, go out, seek out people, seek out individuals whose job you will eventually one day want to have, right? And you know what? Don't be afraid to ask those questions. Don't be afraid to ask for an informational interview, right? And you know, you'll be surprised because there are so many people out there who have come from the same place that you're in today. And you know what? Anytime someone asks me, you know, like, do you want to take me out and just maybe talk for a few hours about your job? Sure, like I'm happy to do it because I've been in that struggle and I know what it's like to not know what's out there. And sometimes, you know, you can learn from other people's experiences. So, you know, you can ask those questions and you can learn a little bit more about the opportunities ahead. And you never know what relationships you'll build by doing that and who you'll come across, because it might just happen that that person sees something really important in you and, you know, sees your interest and, you know, decides to hire you as an intern or, you know, offers you an opportunity to start off in the industry. So don't be afraid to ask those questions and seek out those relationships is what I would say. And the other thing that I would say is, Your network here at York University is immense. Your opportunities are immense. The relationships that I built here, like I come back here to speak at different panels because I enjoyed my time here. I learned so much about myself here, and I built such an amazing network here that I will carry forward for the rest of my life. So, you know what, there are opportunities for you to volunteer, get involved, and you'll be able to build that network, and you don't know, you know, one day in the future, you're probably going to be crossing paths again.
Great. Thank you. Anything you want to add on that?
No, it's pretty much everything's been said. The only quick thing that I'll say is when you make the effort to reach out to people, you're actually showing initiative. You're saying to this person, I care about my professional life and I care about what you're doing. And just the simple act of reaching out is showing that initiative. And so that's one of the things that I found a lot of people are looking for. They want people who are self-starters. They want people who can get something done. The simple fact that you went out and you reached out to them, you know, that is showing that, yeah, I'm somebody who you want to work with because I'm not just sitting around and waiting for opportunities to come to me. I'm making my own path and I'm making my own opportunities.
Great, thank you. So I have many more questions, but I think I'll give you the folks an opportunity now to ask. So if you have a question, please try to keep it or make it broad so that it applies to everybody. And if you could stand or speak loudly, then I'll repeat the question so we can get it on video as well. Any questions?
Come on, guys, show us some initiative.
I'll just keep going because I'll tell you that through the interviewing process, you are all going to have to go through this. And I think it's interesting that the jobs that I'm applying for, a lot of the hiring managers are saying to me, there's no learning curve. We want you to know what you're doing right away. We have these projects, they're approved, we need you to drive them. So literally there is no room for, I need to do an analytics program, I need to understand how to write blogs. You'll be cut out right away. So I think, you know, now is the time for you to gain those skills, because when you're going to be going for these interviews and looking really what you think your vertical will be or what you're interested in, there will be no learning curve, and it'll be up to you. And if you're not performing, you probably will be fired. So, I mean, it's really important to gain that experience, and I think most importantly, it's to understand what your passion is. And I think if you're not following your passion, or you're in a job which you don't feel passionate about, quit. Because it's not going to do anything for you. It's not going to take you anywhere. You're going to turn into bitter people who hate going to work. And honestly, that's, you know, we're here on this planet for so little time. Why should you not enjoy your job? At least have some, you know, shred of interest. Is everybody graduating this year? Is everybody's graduating?
How many people are graduating this year? How many people in their third year? Second? First? Oh, good on you for coming.
Does the school offer co-op programs?
We do have co-op. Yes, we do. We have co-op in limited programs. So we have co-op in science right now and environmental science. So we're developing. York University is really making a push to improve and expand experiential education opportunities. So we do have an internship program in business and I think marketing is part of it. We do have co-op in certain areas as well. So if you wanted more information about that, you can see me after the program. Oh, questions? Okay.
You were talking about the post-grad. Are you talking about master's programs or the certificate?
Certificate. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm talking, you could do master's programs, but I'm talking about certificate or diploma degree programs. Yeah.
Do you find those are more beneficial than the master's programs?
Not more beneficial, just different. So depending on what your interest is. So for example, there are a lot of great now. There are a lot of great masters in communications programs that people can go into. Some of them are practical based, so where a lot of the time what I'm finding now with master's programs that are coming out in communications is you actually have to have around 2 to 5 years experience before even applying for them, because they want you to have some experience within the field before you actually enter into the master's program. So you can use your background and knowledge within the industry and then apply that and typically work on projects that are related to your industry. But some of them are theoretical based, so you'll go in much like an undergraduate degree and do a lot of theory, but have a specific area of research or study. Whereas at the college it's very college level, very practical in terms of the post-grads, right? Because they're aimed at transitioning you into careers. So that's what the idea behind them is, and that's why the majority of them do have co-ops or internships associated with them, although not all of them do. And I don't necessarily think that you need to have a co-op or an internship associated with it. It's just that you get that opportunity to start talking with people in the field. So that's kind of the benefit of doing one after.
Thank you. Do you have a question?
Yes. I was just wondering what kinds of applications or programs you think would be extremely crucial for the next couple of years that we absolutely must know. Thank you.
So the question is, what applications or programs would you recommend that they know to be successful in the next couple of years?
For what industry?
Oh, in marketing. So, for example, analytics-wise, or social media-wise, or creative-wise, in those kinds of things.
Google Analytics. It's definitely a start. You can go on Google has a Google University. You can take it for free. There's another site called lynda.com. $25 a month. Learn anything you want from SEO, SEM, Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, PowerPoint, Microsoft Word, how to take a photo, how to use a toilet. I mean, they have everything. Great, very easy to learn. A lot of companies I'm now finding, at least the large enterprises that I've been interviewing with, more or less have proprietary application programs, simply because there's so much more on a grand scale. Although some of them use programs like Sysomos, Radian 6. There's another company called Infomart, which bundles that together. They're part of the National Post. There's Hootsuite. I mean, there's a whole host. I mean, you can just Google them up, and you can tinker away with it. And I mean, it's definitely something. Again, probably the best scenario is to be at an agency and to just start working a little bit on analytics. But analytics is a growing field. I can't tell you how important analytics are. I think CMOs are finally really regarding analytics as really important. And what I find is so weird is that CMOs and CEOs, they're so shy from social media, and they're like, what is this? It's Justin Bieber, it's Ashton Kutcher. And it's kind of like, do you want me to slap you in the face? Because 10 years ago, if I had told you about applications and initiatives and efforts that are so robust and so highly scalable, would you not be interested in obtaining that information? I mean, it's business intelligence on crack. And we have it, but now you don't want it. So it's coming to that time where they're realizing that the shift. And I brought this, there was, and I don't want to take up too much time for everybody else, but the American Marketing Association, the president's named Craig, and I know him well, and he's a recruiter. And he did a presentation last week on the new marketing rules of 2013. So in my little scribbles here, he wrote, and I can send this PowerPoint to you guys if you want, but the American Marketing Association definition of marketing in 2007. So marketing is an organizational function and a set of processes for creating, communicating, and delivering value to customers and for managing customer relationships in ways that benefit the organization and its stakeholders. That's 5 years ago. So what is marketing now? The newer 2012 version. Marketing is the activity, set of institutions, and processes for creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offerings that have value for customers, clients, partners, and society at large. So we've gone from that inbound, what's good for the board, what's good for the stakeholders, to crowdsourcing. What is the opinion of consumers? How are they shaping our products? How do they want to eat? How do they want to sleep? And we're listening to them. And that's the way, just as we talked about adaptability and malleability within the industry, this is exactly where it's going. So you're going to have to turn that table.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on the question about applications or programs? Okay, thank you. Good question. Okay.
What would you say is the best skill to learn right now for someone who's in their last year of university / first year out of university?
Begging.
Take a minute to think about your best skill. Maybe we'll start on this end over here on now. Or,
Yeah, I would actually kind of kick it back to something more general, because just the initiative, regardless of what field you're looking at, regardless of what you're doing, whether it's learning the analytics, or whether it's working with creative programs like Adobe Creative Suite, or whatever it might be. I think initiative is one of the first things that people that will allow you to win people over, and that kind of opens the door, and then you can really sell yourself after showing them that I can really do this, and you're a go-getter, you're hungry to show them that you can do whatever it is that they need.
I would say, yeah, same thing. I mean, dedication, right? Invest in your own brand, because at the end of the day, you are your own brand, and do what you can to put your best foot forward. In terms of skills, there's a wide range of skills that you can acquire, and you're acquiring today. So I don't think you're going to be at any shortcoming in terms of your skill level. It's about applying yourself. So take that opportunity and just apply yourself.
And how would you say, so in terms of initiative and dedication, how do these students who are going out and looking for jobs show that on a resume? Like what, especially in getting new jobs?
Sorry.
I would say, highlight your involvement. You're doing it here at school. You're taking the initiative to come out to one of these workshops, right? So I'm sure a lot of you are probably involved in a lot of volunteer opportunities here at school. So, highlight that on your resume. And for example, when I was in school here, I was a peer mentor, and that's probably one of the reasons why I still come back to these events. So I was helping, students who were in first or second year through their university process, and now I'm helping people through their career process, right? So highlight those sorts of things, highlight your involvement, highlight your interests, because people today don't want just that person who's been studying just marketing and knows theoretically what marketing is, right? They want to see somebody who is involved in a wide range of things, somebody who's well-rounded, someone who's taking, the opportunity to really look at the social aspect of things, their political surroundings, right? All of these things are important, and they make you who you are, and they make you the individual brand that you are.
And just to give you an example of, so when I say initiative really manifests itself in a number of different ways. And I have an example to give you in terms of, I was reading a magazine. It was something oriented towards careers, not necessarily marketing, but just something career oriented. And this particular fellow was interested in finding a job at what do you call it? It's airlines or?
Flight attendant?
No, it's, it was like a flight agency of some sort. And so this person was really looking forward to, that was what their heart was set on. But they didn't just make an impression. What they did was they actually put together, when you go on a cruise of some sort, you get a package usually of all the different itineraries for your trip, day 1, day 2. You get, what does the cruise ship have, all the offerings. And so this particular person used their creative ability with digital, like Photoshop and all of that stuff, and they made their own package. They put themselves as the itinerary. You could pull out actually, their skill set. You could learn about them in day 3. What else do they have to offer? And so it was a creative way to actually catch the attention of the company itself, and that in itself was that person taking initiative to go beyond and outside of the norm, because it's not just enough to just send your resume in. Like, you kind of want to pop out, and I'll say that with kind of a caveat that you don't want to be unprofessional either. So in this respect, it was a flight agency. It worked for them. That's their business. And so for this person to put in a suitcase all of his flight information about who he is and what he can do worked. So you kind of have to use your best judgment, but that would be an example of someone taking initiative to really go beyond what is just handing in your resume. And it really showed them he wants the position and he can do all these other things at the same time.
I'm just going to add something too. I think, in terms of skills, you asked what skill, and also, Hema, you just kind of wanted a little bit more clarity too in terms of what that is. I think it's really important to know the industry, so start reading the paper, right, online or in this print form or however you choose to read it, and know what's happening in the specific industry that you're either applying to or that you're interested in. Because not only in terms of what's happening there, but how it's impacting other things in terms of politics, in terms of society. It's really important because marketing, not only, as that definition was saying, it's not only about what's happening in its silo, but also in terms of the global and greater scale of things, right? So if you're interested in, like marketing environmental cleaning products, kind of need to know what's happening in the environment, be what's happening in cleaning products, and then also know what's happening in terms of that whole area. So do a lot of reading and put that in the resume that you actually have a knowledge base of that kind of stuff, right? And by referencing certain things that are happening and are current and trends during the time. That's really important. It's kind of staying on top of, I think, trends that are happening because in a particular industry, no matter what industry it is or sector it is within marketing, people are interested in what's happening now, what are the trends now, what's coming forward. If you can actually show that you're a thought leader in something, because you kind of looked around and you've been able to source different information from places and then made it your own and have an opinion on it, that's really important, right? Because essentially what you're doing is being able to say that you care enough and that you've been able to go out and then kind of give your opinion on what's happening based on kind of the information that you've been gathering. So I think that's important, is really researching and knowing things. Because you'll also sometimes find yourself in an interview where they'll ask you something about how is this industry being impacted by this. And you don't want to know what this is that they're referring to, right? So I was guilty of that for a long time. Probably had no idea what was happening for a couple of years just because I was not reading the paper and realized it was really important that I start figuring that out. So so just kind of be aware of what's going on globally within Canada and also within your own communities. So that's also important to kind of know what's happening within the areas that you exist.
And actually, I just wanted to add to that there are a lot of publications. There's Marketing Magazine, Strategy Magazine. You can sign up for e-alerts. And one thing you will find in marketing communications, as we can all attest, is there's a lot of movement. And there's movement all the time, every month. And you will find out about it by these kind of breaking news stories. Now, how does that affect you? Well, a lot of times when TV will switch from publicists to Leo Burnett or whatever, they will take their team with them. This new agency, their AOR, agency of record, will now have new budgets for them, meaning they need to staff up, meaning they need more resources, meaning good for you. So, by finding out what industry trends are and knowing where the moving and shaking is, you can easily call up and say, hey, I know that you got this McDonald's account, and I worked for Taco Bell doing some community management. I was just wondering, is there any internship opportunity? And you target that very specifically. You don't speak to HR. Don't ever speak to HR. That's really my biggest advice. Get to the decision makers, because HR will either shut you down or they'll pass it along. They'll try and represent you right. Again, it's about being up to you. So find out who the account director is. Don't go to the managing director. They don't have enough time. But the account director may have enough time. The account manager may have enough time. So get them on LinkedIn. Make sure your LinkedIn profile, and as I really hope that you go see Steve, you can add in these certain keywords that will present you within the brands or the industries that you're interested in entering in. So I think you have to have some strategy with that, and again, that comes from research, and you're going to find that a lot in marketing. It's based on insights, it's based on auditing, and that's something that you will have to do as well just to get to that initial level.
Okay, thank you. How many of you have portfolios, and is that necessary when looking for a job? Portfolio of your work?
I would say that I do have a portfolio. It hasn't been updated in just a little bit, but my portfolio initially, when I set out in my career path, it was very important, very, very important. And basically anything that I was doing at the theater level even, I was throwing into my portfolio because, you know, it was a tangible resource that you could present at an interview and you could say, hey, like, yes, I have this all on paper, but look at what I've actually done, right? So you can pull it out and show, and that's what I used to do at interviews. And you know what, like I found when I landed my first job in advertising, one thing, the feedback that I got at that time was that you were the only person who actually brought a portfolio for this job opportunity, because at the same time it was an assistant level role, and I guess a lot of people weren't putting that extra bit in, but I really, really wanted that job. So, you know, I took the time, and that was something that I was interested in. So if I was already creating these pieces, why not just put them together and have them to show, right? Because you know that you've got the work. Even, you know, some of the projects that you might be doing in your marketing classes, you know, something that you're very proud of, that's what I included in my portfolio, and that helped me. I don't need it at this point in my career, but I may need it again. You never know. The last few jobs that I had was that I actually got were through networking opportunities, and because people had seen the work that I had done. But you know, initially, I think that's very important.
Good point about using schoolwork. I mean,
yep.
Sure.
Most employers don't expect you to have necessarily a breadth of experience, but the experience that you have at school or at university. Yeah. Certainly can be documented.
And one thing that I'll say is sometimes you'll feel like, okay, this is something that I'm doing in school, it's not applicable in the real world. No, it is, because once you're actually in the industry, you might not put that level, you might not put, you know, so many different aspects into a marketing plan. You're putting what is required of that campaign specifically, but at school you're actually building a plan from A to Z. So you're incorporating everything that you know that needs to go into a plan, into that plan. So you're actually able to show some of your best work at school, believe it or not.
Any other questions?
For your first job, did you feel or felt overwhelmed with the work once you transitioned from school to job?
So the question is, when you got your first job and you transitioned from school to work, did you feel overwhelmed? Do you mean by the workload or by the type of work?
Yeah, environment type thing.
I actually didn't, because a lot of the work that I was doing was similar to what I was doing in my undergrad or had previous experience. I actually found it a lot more enjoyable to be outside of school because you didn't have homework and they paid you to show up. Yeah. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say in my first role, I worked with some really amazing people, and building on that point that Amna said before about the people make a difference, it really did make a difference. And those relationships that I built in my first job, all those people who welcomed me, who were established in the industry, and you know, they really wanted me to learn, and they were interested in my development in my job. So it was great to get into an organization, a team that really invested that much. And we would go out for lunches all the time. And so, you know what, like the workload at times could get heavy, but we were all putting in those extra hours together. We were all getting through it together. So it never actually felt like a burden on me. It felt like, okay, it was a challenge and I needed to kind of step up to the plate. And once I did, it felt great to accomplish that together. So I never felt overwhelmed in my first job.
Okay, so did you guys want anything? No. Okay. So we're almost going to end, but I want to ask two quick questions. Remember, it was a good question too. Okay, so I'll ask my second question. Hopefully I'll remember my first
When you're
great
in a
question.
networking interview, always write your questions.
Yes, I have, but this came up as you were talking. But so in terms of your job, just really quick, what is your favorite part of it, or what is your favorite part of this field? What excites you about it, and what is the part that you like the least? So you want to start?
It's so funny that in an interview they asked me that question.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they said, you know, what excites you about this job? Why do you want this job? Mm-hmm. Just plain out, why do you want this job? What excites you? And really my answer was I love engaging people. I love to connect with people. I love engaging people. I love developing call to actions. I love seeing the analytics that people are clicking through, and it's because of, you know, your creation or your collaboration. You know, I love that you can do A/B testing and really kind of test out the field, and it's about that emotional connectivity, and I think that's something, you know, that you can learn now, is how to emotionally engage people. And I think that at the heart is what marketing is about, because if there's no emotional connection, why would you want to buy a product? You know, you can shave your face, or you can use a soap, but it will make you feel a certain way if you're using a certain brand, because of that certain brand's single most important message, advertising campaign, or the fact that you're just addicted to it.
And what do you like least about this field?
I started out as more consultant and more the entrepreneurial route. So I was working for myself more, which means I was doing my own business development. I was doing my own kind of, you know, my budgeting, and that budgeting for your rent, and, you know, how much you have for your equipment, and understanding how to work around tax laws, and, you know, you incorporate yourself, you have a sole proprietor. So that took a lot of work to kind of understand, okay, how do you do this the solo route, and having all of those, you know, everything there, because, you know, if you're just T4ing, which is just, you know, a regular job, you won't have to worry about saving every little receipt. And so I enjoyed the idea of freedom, actually. I mean, you know, it was a prison-like freedom, because, you know, if I had 2 deadlines the next morning, I could be up, you know, that night until 3 in the morning polishing it off, and working very hard sometimes. But at the same time, if I wanted to go back and see my family in Montreal, I would go. If I wanted to go on vacation, I would go. And you simply can't do that when you're in the working world. You have to go through processes of approval, and you're going to have vacation days. So I think, if anything, about that transition, it's, I can skip a class and have a beer, and who cares? But it's like, you can't do that if you're in the working world and you have a meeting and you miss one meeting, okay, but, you know, if you slack off and miss the second meeting, I mean, there's no room for maneuvering. And I think that's the difference. So, yeah, it's still a fun world. You know, these people, they all have fun, and just good luck.
Thank you. Jackie?
Okay, so I think probably the most rewarding part for me is, because a big piece of my job is actually event management, so a lot of what I do is idea creation into implementation. So that's probably the most rewarding and exciting aspect of my job, is that, you know, there's a lot of time sitting around a table thinking and talking about, what is this conference going to look like? Who are we going to have there? What's going to happen? What's this gala going to look like? What are we going to do with it? And then at the end, actually seeing it happen. So it's a lot about creating an experience for people, but also, because of the field that we're in, also having a highly educational component to it, right? So that people are able to walk away and talk about it to other people, and then that in turn helps your organization, your business, in terms of what you're doing. Probably because we're a small business, so I do a lot of different stuff, so it's not just kind of focused in one area. The most challenging part for me is sales. I'm not a naturally born salesperson. I'm sure you have friends that can, you know, sell anything to anybody. But that's not where my natural fit is. So I find that a challenging part of my job is when I actually have to put in a sales component. And I found that my experience, actually, when I talked about earlier with that experiential field marketing that I was doing, it was pure sales. So I took that actual job at the beginning, not because I thought that I would do wonderfully at it, but because I knew it would push me outside of my comfort zone and hopefully provide me with some skills that I could use if I was going to be going forward. So it's one of the things to kind of learn about yourself, and that's probably the part of my job that I still find most challenging. I have no problem talking to somebody about it, but it's different when you actually have to sell something to make money, right? So doing something for profit's a little bit different, and the stressors are a little bit up in terms of what happens at the end of that. But yeah, so I would say that's the part that I enjoy most, and the part that I find most challenging.
Thank you.
I would say in terms of seeing the whole campaign come to light, so similar to what you just said, I find that extremely rewarding when you're coming up with a plan. You know, for months you'll be planning something, planning different touch points through an integrated marketing communications plan, but then to actually see that translate to market and see how all the pieces fit together is very rewarding. And to know that you had a part in that is, you know, it feels great at that point. The other thing that I would say is the fact that I could not be in a career where I would be doing the same thing day in, day out. And I have the privilege to be doing something different every day. And even if I'm creating a plan from one day to the next, that's never going to be the same thing. It's always going to be different. So I love to have that autonomy to, be able to instigate some change and to be able to, work something out in a different way. And that's very rewarding for me. A challenge, I would say, would be working on CPG for a long time would be some of the limits. So, you can be, it's a creative field, so you have the opportunity to be creative, but then, you have to face the reality of some of the legalities of the matters. Some of, working on CPG, it's a very conservative arena to play in. So you have to sometimes scale yourself back, and you might come to the table with something really exciting and invigorating, but you might have to somehow pull that back because it might not work for everybody.
Thank you.
I would actually say people for both being most the rewarding and the most challenging, and that's just because everyone's different. You'll meet a lot of different characters throughout your time, and some of them you'll learn from by that's something I should do, and some of them you'll learn from as I don't want to be that guy. So I would say both.
Great. Thank you so much. So we heard lots of nuggets of advice today, and I wrote down some of the things that I heard over and over again, and that stood out for me. Now you had talked about trust and integrity, and I thought that was really interesting in this field. Really, to be sustainable and for people to take you seriously, you have to build that trust and integrity. So that was interesting. Research, 3 or 4 of you mentioned, I think all of you mentioned research. Do your research. Research is part of the job. Find a mentor, be open to people around you who could open doors for you and provide you with information. Network, again, along the same lines of being open to people around you and building relationships. Post-grad, consider that as something to solidify your training. Internship, get experience, and also a lot of this field seems to be about building an experience for people. Be on top of trends and things that are happening. Be adaptable and versatile. Don't be afraid to look for informational interviews or ask people for informational interviews, which the Career Center can show you how to do that, by the way. Get involved and harness the experiences that you have here at York, both within the community as well as within the classroom. Create a portfolio. So those are some of the kind of things that I heard. So at this point, I'd like to say thank you so much again for coming in today and sharing your experience with us. I'm sure we all got something out of it, and I want to thank you for taking time and navigating the York maze to find and come here. So thank you, and please share that with us.